"You're poor, Mom," my daughter laughed, her designer purse dangling from her manicured fingers. Those words, spoken so casually at my modest kitchen table, cut deeper than any knife ever could. Her husband Parker chuckled beside her, both of them wrapped in luxury brands that cost more than my monthly expenses. In their world, my simple home in Westfield, Connecticut was something to mock, not respect. The way she looked at my worn furniture, my outdated appliances, the small cracks in my ceiling that I'd been meaning to fix. It was as if I were some pitiable creature, rather than the woman who had sacrificed everything to put her through college. My hands trembled around my coffee mug, its faded glaze a testament to years of early mornings and late nights. 27 years I'd been her mother. 27 years I'd given her every ounce of love in my body, and this was what it had come to. "Melissa," I said quietly, setting down my mug with a soft clink that somehow echoed through the kitchen. "There are different kinds of wealth in this world." She rolled her eyes, a gesture I hadn't seen since her teenage years. "Save the life lessons, Mom. We're here to talk about selling this place. You can't maintain it anymore, and frankly, it's embarrassing when our friends ask where you live." Parker nodded in agreement, his Italian leather shoes tapping impatiently against my linoleum floor. "The housing market is hot right now, Elizabeth. My firm handles properties like this all the time. We could get you a nice little apartment closer to us in Manhattan. Something more suitable for your situation." My situation. As if my life were a problem to be managed. I stood up slowly, feeling every one of my 62 years in my joints. "I need to show you something first." "Mom, we don't have time for—" "Make time," I said, with a firmness that surprised even me. I led them upstairs, past the photographs that chronicled our lives. Melissa's graduation, her wedding day, pictures of her father before cancer took him when she was just 16. They followed reluctantly, exchanging glances that said everything about how they viewed this detour, an old woman's stalling tactic. My bedroom was just as modest as the rest of the house. Faded floral wallpaper, a quilt my mother had made, simple wooden furniture that had served me for decades. I walked to the closet and pushed aside hanging clothes, revealing the wall behind. "Mom, seriously, what are you doing?" Melissa sighed. I ran my fingers along the seam of the wallpaper until I found it, the almost invisible edge where the wall wasn't quite a wall. I pressed firmly, and a panel slid open with a soft click. Behind it was a safe. Not just any safe, but a high-security vault embedded deep into the structure of the house. My fingers moved automatically, spinning the dial with practiced precision. Right to 22, left to 47, right to 19. My late husband James's birthday. The heavy door swung open silently. Melissa's sharp intake of breath was audible in the sudden stillness of the room. Parker took an involuntary step forward. Inside the safe wasn't just cash or jewelry. There were stock certificates, property deeds, bank statements from accounts in Switzerland, the Cayman Islands, Singapore, a collection of rare coins worth more than Parker's Manhattan penthouse, documentation of art investments stored in climate-controlled facilities across 3 continents, a portfolio that would make their jaws drop even further if they understood the full implications. What is all this?" Melissa whispered, her voice suddenly childlike again. I turned to face my daughter, the daughter who had just moments ago laughed at my poverty. "This, Melissa," I said quietly, "is what you were never supposed to know about until you learned what actually matters in life." Clearly, I waited too long. My name is Elizabeth Harrington, widow, mother, secret millionaire. I've lived in this 3-bedroom colonial in Westfield for over 30 years, ever since James and I bought it when Melissa was just a baby. It's not much by today's standards, about 2,000 square feet on a quarter-acre lot, with a garden I tend myself, and furniture I've kept in good condition since the 1990s. The neighbors know me as the retired high school English teacher who volunteers at the library on Tuesdays and brings homemade banana bread to community meetings. They see me driving my 2010 Toyota Camry, clipping coupons before grocery shopping, and wearing clothes from department store sales. Nothing about me suggests wealth. That was deliberate. Every morning starts the same way. I wake at 5:30, make a single cup of coffee in my drip machine, and sit on the back porch watching the sun rise over my vegetable garden. This morning ritual is sacred to me, a quiet moment of reflection before the day begins. My wedding ring, a simple gold band, still sits on my finger, though James has been gone for 15 years now. The day Melissa and Parker came to discuss my future had begun like any other. I'd picked tomatoes from the garden, planning to make James's marinara sauce recipe later. There was a slight chill in the air, signaling the approach of fall. The maple tree in my backyard was just starting to turn, a few leaves hinting at the spectacular show to come. James and I had decided long ago that our daughter would be raised without the knowledge of our true financial status. We'd both come from humble beginnings, worked hard for everything we had. James's investment firm had taken off in the late 80s, but we maintained our modest lifestyle even as our portfolio expanded exponentially. We wanted Melissa to understand the value of $1, to appreciate hard work and simplicity. No trust fund babies, James used to say. Let her earn her own way, just like we did. He died suddenly, a heart attack while playing tennis. One moment discussing quarterly projections with his partner, the next gone forever. Melissa was 16, angry at the world, and suddenly without a father. I followed James's wishes, keeping our wealth hidden, allowing her only a modest college fund while the rest remained locked away in investments that continued to grow. I taught English at Westfield High until 5 years ago, my salary covering our daily expenses while the fortune remained untouched. My colleagues thought James had left me adequately provided for, but nothing extraordinary. I never corrected them. There was dignity in work, purpose in shaping young minds, comfort in routine. Melissa went to UConn, not Harvard or Yale, though she could have attended any school in the country. She studied business, met Parker in her senior year, and gradually transformed into someone I barely recognized. Her calls became less frequent, her visits home perfunctory. The warm, curious child who once sat on my lap while I read Charlotte's Web aloud disappeared, replaced by a woman obsessed with status and appearances. Parker came from money, old New York money that looked down on teachers and modest colonials in Connecticut suburbs. Their wedding was lavish, held at his parents' estate in the Hamptons. I wore a dress I bought on sale at Macy's and endured the pitying glances from his family. "Your mother seems nice," his mother had said to Melissa, the pause speaking volumes. I pretended not to hear, sipping champagne that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. The grandchildren I'd hoped for never came. Melissa and Parker were too busy building careers, accumulating possessions, climbing social ladders. They lived in a glass and steel high-rise with views of Central Park, took vacations to places where a single night's stay equaled a month of my pension. And somehow, despite having every advantage, my daughter seemed increasingly unhappy, increasingly judgmental of the life I'd chosen to lead. I knew the money couldn't stay hidden forever. James and I had agreed I would reveal the truth when the time was right, when Melissa demonstrated the values we'd tried to instill, when wealth would be a tool rather than a crutch. But as the years passed, that moment never seemed to arrive. Until now. Until she laughed at my perceived poverty. Until she and her husband sat at my kitchen table, discussing my future as if I were an inconvenient problem to solve, rather than a person with agency and dignity. The shock on their faces as they stared into the safe was something I'll never forget. The calculations immediately visible in Parker's eyes as he tried to estimate just how much everything was worth. The confusion in Melissa's expression, quickly morphing into something harder to define. Anger, perhaps, or betrayal. "How long?" she asked, her voice tight. "How long have you been hiding this from me?" I closed the safe door gently, hearing the satisfying click of expensive machinery locking into place. "Your entire life," I said simply. "Your father and I always intended to tell you, when you were ready." "Ready?" Her voice rose sharply. "I'm 34 years old, Mom. What exactly was I supposed to be ready for?" I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. The designer clothes that hung perfectly on her too-thin frame, the diamond earrings that caught the light, the hard set of her jaw that reminded me painfully of James when he was angry. "For the responsibility," I answered softly. "For understanding that this," I gestured toward the safe, "isn't what makes a life worthwhile." Melissa's laugh echoed through my bedroom, but this time there was no amusement in it, only cold, hard disbelief. "You've been living like this." She gestured around my simple room. "While sitting on a fortune? Do you have any idea what that money could have done for us? For me?" The us in her sentence struck me as particularly hollow. There was no us in her mind, only what my hidden wealth could have provided for her and Parker's lifestyle. "Your father and I made a choice," I said. keeping my voice steady. We wanted you to develop character, not entitlement. Parker stepped forward. His demeanor suddenly transformed. The condescension had vanished, replaced by calculated interest. "Elizabeth," he said, using my first name with newfound respect. "Perhaps we should discuss this downstairs, as a family." The way he said family made my skin crawl. Back in the kitchen, I poured more coffee, my hands steady despite the storm brewing around me. Parker had pulled out his phone, no doubt running searches on property values and investment options. Melissa sat rigidly, her expression a battlefield of emotions. "So all those years," she began, her voice trembling slightly, "when I was working part-time jobs during college, when I was living in that awful apartment with roommates, when I had to take out student loans, you could have helped me?" "I did help you," I replied. "Your education was paid for. You had a safe home, food on the table, clothes on your back." "The bare minimum!" she snapped. "My friends were driving BMWs while I had a used Honda. They were taking spring break trips to Europe while I was working retail. Do you know how humiliating that was?" I set my cup down slowly. "And now? Are you happier now with your luxury car and your penthouse view?" She flinched as if I'd slapped her. "Elizabeth," Parker interjected smoothly, setting his phone aside. "What Melissa means is that families typically share resources, support each other. It's unusual to withhold this level of wealth from your only child." I looked at him, this man who had married my daughter not knowing her family had more wealth than his own. "Is that why you married her, Parker? For resources?" His face flushed. "That's completely inappropriate. I love Melissa. Then you should understand why James and I made our choice. We loved her enough to want her to become someone who doesn't measure worth by a bank balance." Melissa stood abruptly. "Stop acting like you did this out of love. You did it to control me, to keep me dependent on your approval. If I'd known about this money, I could have what?" I interrupted. "Started your own business instead of working your way up? Bought influence instead of earning respect? Tell me, Melissa, what would you have done differently?" She faltered for just a moment, then regained her composure. "I wouldn't have spent years feeling sorry for you, for one thing. Do you know how often I've defended you to Parker's family? My mom's just a teacher. She does the best she can. We need to help her out. God, I've been so stupid." Each word was another knife in my heart, not because she was angry about the money, but because she saw my life, the life I had chosen, the work I had loved, as something pitiable, something to apologize for. "I never asked for your pity," I said quietly. "No, you just manipulated me, manipulated my entire life." She turned to Parker. "We're leaving. I can't even look at her right now." Parker seemed reluctant to go, his eyes darting back toward the staircase where the safe was hidden. "Melissa, perhaps we should discuss this further. Your mother obviously has some estate planning to consider and—" "Oh my God." Melissa stared at her husband. "You're already thinking about how to get your hands on her money." He had the grace to look embarrassed, but didn't deny it. The realization seemed to hit Melissa like a physical blow. She sank back into her chair, suddenly caught between her anger at me and the naked opportunism of her husband. "What a mess," she whispered, more to herself than to us. I reached across the table, intending to take her hand, but she pulled away. "Don't," she said. "Just don't, Mom." The silence that followed was deafening. Decades of choices, of secrets kept, of values taught and rejected, all hanging in the air between us. Finally, Parker cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should give everyone some time to process this information. Elizabeth, I assume there are legal documents, trusts, that sort of thing?" "Everything is in order," I replied coldly, "and not accessible to either of you." His smile tightened. "Of course, but as family we have an interest in—" "My financial affairs are exactly that," I cut him off. "Mine." Melissa stood again, grabbing her purse. "Let's go, Parker." Obviously, my mother has everything under control, just like she always has, without bothering to include me. As they headed for the door, Melissa turned back one last time. All those years of coupon cutting and budget talks, all those lectures about the value of $1. Was it all just an act, Mom? Some elaborate test I didn't know I was taking? I met her gaze steadily. "It was the life I chose, Melissa. The life your father and I believed in." "Well, I didn't get a choice, did I?" She laughed bitterly. "All this time I've been feeling guilty for leaving you in this outdated house, for not visiting enough, for not helping you financially. What a joke. The front door slammed behind them, rattling the photographs on the wall, the same photographs they had barely glanced at on their way upstairs. Images of a family that now seemed as distant as a fading dream. The house fell silent after they left. I moved through the rooms like a ghost, touching photographs, remembering. There was Melissa at 5, missing her front teeth, grinning widely on her first day of kindergarten. Her backpack had been from Target, not some designer boutique. She hadn't cared then. I sat in James's old reading chair, the leather cracked from years of use. We'd bought it secondhand when we first moved to Westfield, long before his investment firm took off. He'd refused to replace it even when we could afford the finest furniture. "It knows my shape," he'd say with a wink. James had grown up in rural Pennsylvania, the son of a coal miner who died of black lung before his 50th birthday. Every penny in our fortune had been earned through his brilliant mind, his endless work ethic, and an almost supernatural ability to predict market trends. Yet he'd driven the same Volvo for 15 years and bought his suits off the rack. The memory came flooding back. Melissa at 12, throwing a tantrum in the department store because I wouldn't buy her the expensive jeans all her friends had. "Why can't we afford it?" she'd demanded, loud enough for other shoppers to turn and stare. "Dad's a businessman. Why are we so poor?" That night, James had sat her down at this very kitchen table. "Melissa," he'd said gently, "being able to afford something and choosing to spend money on it are two different things. We're teaching you the difference between need and want. But Katie's parents buy her whatever she wants." James had smiled sadly. "And what kind of person is Katie becoming because of that?" Even then, we'd seen the warning signs, the materialistic streak, the constant comparison to others who had more. We'd hoped our example would eventually sink in. The value of education, of experiences over possessions, of security built slowly rather than displayed ostentatiously. Another memory, Melissa at 18, opening her college acceptance letters. The joy on her face when UConn offered her a partial scholarship. "I did it, Mom. I earned this." That pride in achievement. It had been real, hadn't it? Not just a performance for our benefit. James died the following year. The cancer was swift and merciless, leaving no time for long goodbyes or revised plans. On his deathbed, he'd clasped my hand with what little strength remained in his body. "The money," he'd whispered. "Don't let it change her, Lizzie. Don't let it change you." I'd promised, tears streaming down my face. I'd kept our wealth hidden, maintained the fiction that we were comfortably middle class but nothing more. Continued teaching not because I needed the salary, but because I loved it, because I believed in the power of literature to transform young minds. The investment portfolio grew steadily under the careful management of James's most trusted colleagues, the only ones who knew the truth. Our modest house appreciated in value. The art collection James had quietly amassed became increasingly valuable. The rare book collection in our basement, hidden behind a false wall like something from a mystery novel, included first editions worth small fortunes. All of it secret, all of it waiting for the right moment to be revealed to Melissa. I'd imagined that moment differently, perhaps when she was starting her own family, wanting to put down roots, or when she found her true calling in life and needed capital to pursue it, or simply when she'd matured enough to understand that wealth was a responsibility, not just a privilege. Instead, I'd opened the safe because my own daughter had laughed at me, had deemed me pitiable, had conspired with her husband to move me out of my own home for their convenience. The phone rang, startling me from my reverie. The caller ID showed Melissa's name. For a moment, hope fluttered in my chest. Perhaps she'd calmed down, was ready to talk rationally. I answered quickly. "Mom." Her voice was cool, controlled. "I've been thinking about what happened. We need to meet with your financial advisors. Parker knows someone who specializes in estate planning for high net worth individuals." The hope withered as quickly as it had bloomed. "That won't be necessary, Melissa. Be reasonable, Mom. You can't manage all this yourself. You're not getting any younger, and I've been managing all this for 15 years since your father died." I interrupted. "The same advisors who worked with him continue to work with me. I don't need Parker's connections." Her frustration came through clearly. "Why are you being so difficult? This affects my future too." "Does it?" I asked quietly. "Have you ever considered that perhaps it doesn't? That perhaps your father and I set things up to ensure you would make your own way regardless?" The silence on the other end lasted so long I thought she might have hung up. "You wouldn't," she finally said, but uncertainty had crept into her voice. "Wouldn't what?" create trusts with specific conditions, designate portions of our estate to charitable causes. Melissa, you've never asked about our values when it comes to wealth. You've only just discovered the wealth exists, and already you're trying to control it. It's my inheritance, she snapped. No, I said firmly. It's my life, my choices, just as your life is yours to build. After she hung up, I sat motionless in James's chair, watching the shadows lengthen across our living room floor, the room where I'd read bedtime stories to Melissa, where I'd graded countless student papers, where James and I had planned our future, never imagining I would be navigating it alone. I opened the photo album on the coffee table. There we were, the three of us, on vacation at the small lake house in New Hampshire. Melissa, maybe 7 years old, proudly holding up a fish she'd caught with James's help, her smile wide and genuine, unconcerned with anything beyond the simple joy of the moment. Where had that child gone? When had appearances become more important than experiences? When had her measure of success shifted from achievement to acquisition? And the hardest question of all, had our choice to hide our wealth been a mistake? Had we, in trying to protect her from the burden of unearned privilege, somehow pushed her directly toward it? Thanksgiving arrived with a cold snap that painted frost on my windows and turned the remaining leaves to brittle paper. Traditionally, I hosted the holiday at my home, cooking for days, setting the table with my mother's china, creating the warm atmosphere that had defined our family celebrations for decades. This year, however, Melissa had insisted we change venues. We're having Thanksgiving at our place, she'd announced during one of our tense phone conversations. Parker's parents are coming, and his sister and her husband. I understood the subtext immediately. Now that she knew about the money, she wanted to introduce me to her in-laws in a new light, not as the modest schoolteacher mother-in-law, but as the secretly wealthy widow whose fortune might exceed their own. The penthouse was exactly as ostentatious as I'd expected, 37 floors above Manhattan, with floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing views that cost millions to possess. Abstract art that matched the furniture perfectly, but conveyed no emotion. A dining table that seated 14 in a space designed to impress rather than comfort. I'd arrived early at Melissa's insistence. "We need to get our story straight," she'd said, as if our life was a deception requiring coordination. Parker greeted me with newfound warmth. "Elizabeth, wonderful to see you. Can I get you something? Champagne? We have an excellent Krug." "Water is fine," I replied, setting my purse down on an Italian marble countertop that probably cost more than my car. Melissa emerged from the master bedroom, dressed in an outfit that would have paid my property taxes for a year. "Mom, good. You're here. We need to talk before everyone arrives." She led me to the guest room, closing the door behind us. "I've told Parker's parents that you've recently come into some money, a distant relative's inheritance. Nothing specific." I raised an eyebrow. "You want me to lie?" "I want you to help me save face," she hissed. "Do you have any idea how humiliating it is? All these years they've been looking down on you, on us, and you had more money than they did all along. And that bothers you because I've spent the last decade trying to fit into their world, making connections, impressing the right people, getting invited to the right events. Do you know how hard that is when your mother is just a retired schoolteacher from Connecticut?" The words hit me like physical blows. Just a schoolteacher. As if the career I'd loved, the students whose lives I'd touched, meant nothing compared to the social climbing she'd been engaged in. "I'm sorry my vocation embarrassed you," I said quietly. She waved a dismissive hand. "That's not what I meant. Look, they'll be here soon. Just play along, okay? Mention the trip to Paris." "What trip to Paris?" She blinked. "The one I told them you're taking this spring. First-class tickets, 5-star hotel, shopping on the Champs-Élysées. That trip to Paris." Before I could respond, the doorbell rang. Melissa straightened her designer dress. Remember, distant relative, surprise inheritance, trip to Paris. The evening unfolded like a poorly scripted play. Parker's father, Richard, a silver-haired man with the permanent tan of the wealthy retiree, immediately engaged me in conversation about investment strategies. His wife, Constance, appraised my simple dress with new eyes, no doubt calculating its price point and finding it wanting despite her knowledge of my supposed wealth. "Elizabeth," Richard said, swirling his scotch, "Parker tells me you've come into some money recently. Have you considered diversifying into emerging markets? I have some connections in Singapore that have been quite profitable. I sipped my water. I'm comfortable with my current arrangements, thank you. Mom's very private about financial matters, Melissa interjected with a tight smile. Old habits, you know. Constance patted my hand condescendingly. Completely understandable, dear. New money can be so overwhelming. If you need any advice on estate planning, our family has used the same firm for generations. New money. The implication being that their wealth was somehow more legitimate because it was older. I thought of James, working 16-hour days to build his firm from nothing, and felt a surge of protective anger. Actually, I said, my late husband was quite thorough in his financial planning, but thank you for your concern. Parker's sister Charlotte leaned forward. Melissa mentioned you're planning a trip to Paris. The Ritz is divine, though we prefer Le Bristol when we visit. I met Melissa's panicked eyes across the table. I haven't finalized my plans yet. Mom's thinking about renting an apartment instead, Melissa quickly added. For authenticity. The dinner continued, each course more elaborate than the last, each conversation more strained. I became a curiosity to be studied, a potential resource to be evaluated. Not once did anyone ask about my life, my interests, my passions. The decades I'd spent shaping young minds through literature might as well have never happened. When dessert was served, some deconstructed confection that hardly resembled food, Richard raised his glass. To Elizabeth and her good fortune. May it be wisely managed. His eyes flicked to Parker, the implication clear. By someone other than me. And to Paris, Charlotte added with a wink. The first of many luxurious adventures, I'm sure. I set down my fork. Actually, I prefer simpler travels. Last summer, I took my students to the Stratford Shakespeare Festival. Seeing their faces when the language they'd struggled with in the classroom came alive on stage, that was luxury. Silence fell over the table. Melissa's face flushed with embarrassment. Students? Constance asked delicately. I thought you were retired? I am, but I still mentor a group of high school seniors each year. We fundraise for the trip together. Richard chuckled. Well, now you can simply write a check, can't you? Save those children the trouble. The fundraising is part of the experience, I said. It teaches them the value. Mom still thinks everyone should pull themselves up by their bootstraps, Melissa interrupted with a forced laugh, as if we all lived in a Dickens novel. The table laughed politely. I became suddenly, acutely aware of how out of place I was in this world of casual wealth and calculated appearances. How foreign these people were to me, with their designer labels and their judgments barely concealed behind social niceties. And my daughter, my Melissa, was one of them now. Had been for years, apparently, striving to erase her modest upbringing and reinvent herself as someone worthy of their approval. Excuse me, I said, rising from the table. I need some air. On the balcony, 37 floors above the city, I watched lights twinkle like earthbound stars. Behind me, through the glass doors, I could see them continuing their meal, their laughter, their performance of wealth and status. Melissa glanced at me once, concern quickly masked by annoyance at my disruption of her carefully orchestrated evening. In that moment, watching my only child through glass, I had never felt more alone. The taxi ride back to Connecticut that night was long and quiet. I'd left the Thanksgiving dinner early, claiming fatigue. In truth, I couldn't bear another minute of watching my daughter perform for her in-laws, of being the subject of their thinly veiled curiosity and judgment. Melissa had been furious, her smile frozen as she walked me to the door. You couldn't even try, could you? She'd whispered. One dinner, that's all I asked. I'd looked into her eyes, James's eyes, and seen nothing of the child I'd raised. I did try, Melissa, for 34 years. Tonight, I finally realized I've been trying for the wrong things. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table with coffee and a legal pad. The house was silent except for the ticking of the grandfather clock James had restored the year before Melissa was born. It had kept perfect time for over 3 decades, marking the seconds of our family life with steady precision. I began to write, making lists, laying out plans, not in anger, but with a clarity that felt like waking from a long dream. For years, I'd been waiting for my daughter to become the person I'd hoped she would be, someone who valued character over wealth, substance over appearance, giving over taking. I'd been waiting for her to earn the knowledge of our fortune by demonstrating she wouldn't be defined by it. But perhaps I'd been wrong all along. Perhaps by hiding the truth, I'd inadvertently made money the most important thing. By trying to protect her from wealth's corrupting influence, I'd created a hunger for precisely what I feared. The irony wasn't lost on me. I picked up my phone and made a call I should have made years ago. "Margaret Chen's office," a crisp voice answered. "This is Elizabeth Harrington. I need to speak with Margaret about making some changes to my arrangements." Margaret had been James's attorney for decades, one of the few people who knew the full extent of our holdings. She'd helped create the complex trust structures that managed our wealth, that would eventually transfer it according to our wishes. "Elizabeth," Margaret said when she came on the line, "it's been a while. Is everything all right?" "No," I answered honestly, "but it will be. I need to come see you. Today, if possible." 3 hours later, I sat in Margaret's sleek downtown office, surrounded by the evidence of her own success. Tasteful, understated, but unmistakable. Like James, she believed wealth was a tool, not an identity. "So," she said after listening to my account of recent events, "you've finally told Melissa." "Not by choice," I admitted, "and not in the way James and I had planned." She nodded, pulling up files on her computer. "The Harrington Family Trust is quite specific about distribution conditions. James was thorough in his provisions." "Too thorough," I sighed. "We thought we were doing the right thing, Margaret, protecting her from the burden of too much, too soon." "Many of my clients make similar choices," she said neutrally, "with varying results." I leaned forward. "I need to make changes. Not to undo everything, but to course correct. It's time to stop hiding. Stop waiting for some perfect moment that may never come." For the next 2 hours, we reviewed documents, discussed options, laid out new pathways. When we finished, I felt lighter than I had in years, as if I'd set down a weight I hadn't realized I'd been carrying. "Are you sure about this approach?" Margaret asked as her assistant brought in revised paperwork. "It's quite different from what you and James originally planned." I thought of Melissa's face at the Thanksgiving table, beautiful, poised, and completely disconnected from the values that had shaped my life. James isn't here. He couldn't have foreseen how things would turn out. I have to make these decisions on my own now. "He would have trusted your judgment," Margaret said kindly. "He always did." On the drive home, I took a detour, following familiar roads to Westfield High School. It was closed for the holiday weekend, the building dark, the parking lot empty. I sat in my car, looking at the place where I'd spent over 30 years, teaching generations of young people about literature, about ideas, about the things that truly matter. A memory surfaced, my last day before retirement, my students presenting me with a scrapbook of letters describing how I'd influenced their lives. I'd cried then, touched by their words. Several of those students still kept in touch, still sought my advice. One was now an English teacher herself at a school in Hartford. In all those years of teaching, I'd never felt I needed to apologize for my career, to justify my choice to remain in the classroom, even after we no longer needed the income. It had been my calling, my passion, my contribution to the world. When had I allowed Melissa's judgment, and by extension, Parker's and his family's, to make me question that choice, even for a moment? At home, I walked through each room slowly, seeing it with new eyes, not as the modest house that embarrassed my daughter, but as the home where James and I had built a life of meaning and purpose, a home with memories in every corner, with character earned through decades of living. In the study, I opened James's old desk drawer and pulled out a leather-bound journal I hadn't looked at in years. His handwriting filled the pages, thoughts, plans, hopes for the future. I found what I was looking for toward the end, written in the months before his diagnosis. "The true purpose of wealth," he'd written, "is not comfort or status or power. It's freedom. Freedom to make choices based on values rather than necessity. Freedom to help others in meaningful ways. Freedom to leave the world better than we found it." I traced my fingers over his words, feeling his presence in a way I hadn't in years. "I understand now, James," I whispered to the empty room. "I finally understand." That night, I slept more peacefully than I had in months, my path forward suddenly clear. No more waiting for Melissa to become someone she clearly had no interest in being. No more allowing my life to be diminished in her eyes or anyone else's. No more secrets, no more tests, no more holding patterns. It was time to live according to my own values, openly and without apology. The week after Thanksgiving passed in a flurry of activity. I made calls, sent emails, signed documents, set meetings. Margaret's office handled the legal complexities while I focused on the human elements of my plan. Melissa called only once, her voice cool and professional. "Mom, Parker and I are hosting a Christmas party on the 15th. His firm's partners will be there. I've told them about your situation. They're interested in discussing investment opportunities. I won't be available," I replied calmly. What could possibly be more important than meeting Parker's senior partners? The disbelief in her voice was palpable. "I have my own meeting that evening, with my foundation board." A pause. "What foundation?" "The Harrington Education Foundation. It's been operating quietly for years, but we're expanding our mission." Another longer pause. "We need to talk about this. I'll come by tomorrow." "I won't be home tomorrow, but I'm free next Tuesday afternoon if you'd like to come to the foundation office downtown." The silence stretched between us, filled with unasked questions. Finally, she said, "Fine, text me the address," and hung up. The following Tuesday, I arrived early at the newly leased office space in downtown Hartford. The Harrington Education Foundation had existed for nearly a decade, but had operated through intermediaries, anonymously funding scholarships, teacher training programs, and literacy initiatives. Now, with Margaret's help, I was bringing it into the light, expanding its scope, and taking a direct role in its operations. The space was modest, but well-appointed, functional, rather than flashy. I'd hired a small staff of experienced nonprofit professionals, people who shared my values and vision. By the time Melissa arrived, we were already deep in planning for the foundation's public launch. She entered like a storm front, all dark energy and barely contained emotion. Her eyes swept the office, taking in the mission statement framed on the wall, the staff working at their computers, the conference room where board materials were being prepared. "What is all this?" she demanded. "This," I said, gesturing around us, "is what your father and I always intended to do with the bulk of our fortune." I led her into my private office and closed the door. On my desk sat the portfolio Margaret had prepared, a comprehensive overview of the Harrington family finances, the foundation's structure and mission, and the revised estate plan. "Sit down, Melissa. It's time you understood everything." For the next hour, I walked her through the documents. The foundation, which would receive 60% of our estate, dedicated to educational equity and opportunity, the personal trusts, structured to provide her with a comfortable income, but not the lump sum control she'd clearly been anticipating, the properties, the investments, the art collection, all of it laid bare, along with the philosophy behind our decisions. "This foundation has already helped over 1,000 students attend college," I explained, showing her photographs of scholarship recipients, many of them first-generation college students, just like your father was. Melissa stared at the papers, her expression shifting between disbelief, calculation, and something harder to define. "And you never thought to include me in any of this? To ask what I might want to do with my inheritance? This isn't just about what you want," I said gently. "It's about responsibility to something larger than ourselves. Your father built his success from nothing. He never forgot where he came from. So this is punishment," she said flatly, "because I don't live like you, because I want different things. I don't deserve to control what should be mine. No, Melissa, this is reality. The fortune exists because of choices your father and I made. It will continue to exist, to grow, to do good in the world, because of choices I'm making now." I took a deep breath, including the choice to stop hiding who I am and what I believe in. She looked up sharply. "What does that mean?" I handed her an embossed invitation. "The foundation's official launch. Next month. I'd like you and Parker to attend." Her eyes widened as she read the details. "You're going public with all of this? The press will be there?" "Yes. It's time to step out of the shadows, to use our name and our resources openly for the causes we believe in. Do you have any idea what this will do? Everyone will know. Parker's family, our friends, everyone. Know what? That your mother isn't just a retired school teacher? That the Harrington family has significant wealth? That we're choosing to use that wealth to help others?" I leaned forward. "Would that really be so terrible, Melissa?" She stood abruptly, pacing my small office. "You don't understand. You've never understood. This changes everything, only if you let it." She stopped at the window, looking out at the Hartford skyline. For a moment, I caught a glimpse of vulnerability beneath her polished exterior. "All these years," she said quietly, "I thought I knew who we were, who you were. I'm still the same person, Melissa. The mother who read you bedtime stories, who helped with your homework, who cheered at your graduation. But you're not," she insisted, turning to face me. "You've been living a double life." The modest teacher routine was just that, a routine. "No," I said firmly. "It was a choice. Every day I chose to live according to values I believe in, to do work I found meaningful. The money was always secondary." She shook her head, unable or unwilling to understand. "What about the trust for me? When do I get control of that?" The question, so naked in its focus on money rather than meaning, broke my heart a little, but I'd anticipated it. "There are staged distributions," I explained. "Beginning on your 40th birthday, with conditions." "Conditions," she repeated flatly. "Of course. Involvement with the foundation, a demonstrated commitment to giving back, evidence that you understand wealth as responsibility, not just privilege." Her laugh was sharp, humorless. "So I'm still being tested, still trying to earn your approval." "No, Melissa. You're being asked to honor your father's legacy, and perhaps, eventually, to find purpose beyond consumption and status." I softened my voice. "Is that really so terrible a request?" She gathered her designer purse, her movements precise and controlled. "I need to think, and talk to Parker. Of course. But Melissa," I waited until she met my eyes, "think carefully about what truly matters to you, about what kind of life actually brings fulfillment, because I've watched you these past years, and despite all the trappings of success, you don't seem happy." She flinched slightly, as if my words had struck a nerve. "You don't know anything about my life." "I know more than you think," I said quietly. "I'm your mother." After she left, I sat at my desk, surrounded by the evidence of the new chapter I was beginning. On my computer screen was the draft of my speech for the foundation launch, words I'd been carefully crafting about opportunity, about education as the great equalizer, about James's journey from coal country to success, and his determination to create similar pathways for others. For the first time in years, I felt fully aligned with my purpose. No more shadows, no more waiting, no more allowing others to define the value of my life and choices. Whether Melissa would join me on this journey remained to be seen. I hoped she would, but I was finally ready to accept that I couldn't control her path any more than my parents could have controlled mine. I could only live my truth, and hope that someday she would recognize her own. The invitations to the Harrington Education Foundation launch went out the following week, to educational leaders, philanthropists, community partners, former students, and yes, to Parker's family as well. I'd had Margaret quietly investigate their own charitable giving, minimal, as I'd suspected, and business connections, extensive with several potential conflicts of interest regarding the foundation's work. I didn't expect them to attend. In fact, I rather hoped they wouldn't. But I wanted them to know. I wanted everyone to know that Elizabeth Harrington was stepping fully into her power, no longer hiding behind modesty or anonymity. The responses began arriving immediately. Enthusiastic acceptances from educators I'd worked with over the years, from community leaders who recognized the foundation's potential impact, from former students eager to celebrate their teacher's new chapter. No response came from Melissa and Parker. I continued my preparations, meeting with the foundation staff, reviewing grant applications, finalizing the details for the launch event. I'd chosen the old Hartford Public Library building as our venue, recently renovated, but still carrying the gravitas of history, a testament to the enduring importance of knowledge and education. On a crisp December morning, as I was reviewing the catering details with the event planner, my phone rang. Parker's name appeared on the screen. "Elizabeth," he said without preamble, "we need to talk about this foundation situation." "Good morning, Parker," I replied evenly. "What would you like to know?" "Melissa has been upset since your meeting. She feels blindsided by these developments." His tone was all business, as if discussing a problematic client rather than family matters. "We'd like to propose an alternative arrangement." "I'm listening." "We believe the foundation would benefit from professional management. Melissa and I would like to take a more active role, perhaps as co-directors. With her business background and my connections, we could elevate the foundation's profile significantly." I almost laughed at the transparency of it. And what experience does either of you have in educational philanthropy? He cleared his throat. That's not really the point. The point is efficiency, maximizing impact through professional management. You've been a teacher, Elizabeth, not an administrator. These organizations require a different skill set. I've hired people with those skills, I said simply. People who share the foundation's values and mission. Yes, well, his frustration was audible. That's another concern. The current mission seems rather narrow. Education is important, of course, but there are more prestigious areas of philanthropy that would attract higher-profile donors and partners. Now I understood. They wanted to transform my focused mission into a social climbing tool, a way to gain entree into elite philanthropic circles where they could rub shoulders with old money and new power alike. The mission isn't changing, Parker. It reflects James's values and mine. About that, he continued smoothly, Melissa feels that as James's daughter, she should have more input into how his legacy is managed. It's a matter of respect for his wishes. The sheer audacity of it, invoking James's wishes when he'd never met the man, when Melissa had barely mentioned her father in years, made my blood boil. But I kept my voice calm. James and I made these decisions together, long ago. Margaret Chen has all the documentation. A pause. Yes, Margaret. About her, we've been looking into other legal representation for the family interests. Someone with more experience in high net worth estate management. Margaret has managed our affairs for over 30 years. Exactly. Perhaps it's time for fresh eyes. His tone shifted, became almost confidential. Between us, Elizabeth, Melissa is concerned about your judgment in these matters. The sudden public announcement, the rushed establishment of this office, the rather emotional focus of the foundation. She wonders if perhaps grief has affected your decision-making. So that was their angle. Paint me as an emotional widow, unable to manage complex financial matters, in need of their guidance and control. It was so predictable I almost felt sorry for their lack of imagination. Parker, I said, my voice glacial. Let me be very clear. The foundation structure was established a decade ago. The decision to go public now is strategic and carefully considered, and my judgment is absolutely sound. As Margaret, my financial advisors, and the foundation board can all attest. Melissa is just concerned. If Melissa is concerned, I interrupted, she should come speak to me directly, not send her husband to suggest I'm mentally incompetent. He backpedaled quickly. No one is suggesting that. We're simply offering our expertise. Your expertise is noted and declined. Is there anything else? After a moment of strained silence, he said, We'll see you at the launch event, and hung up. I sat back in my chair, processing the conversation. It had gone exactly as I'd expected. A transparent attempt to gain control, to reshape my life's work into something that served their social ambitions. I wasn't angry. In fact, I felt strangely calm, even powerful. For the first time, I was seeing their manipulations clearly, without the protective fog of maternal hope clouding my judgment. They had shown their hand, and it was weaker than they realized. That afternoon, I met with Margaret to warn her about the call. They may try to contact you directly, I explained, to question the trust structures, to suggest changes to the foundation governance. She smiled slightly. They wouldn't be the first family members to try that approach. Don't worry, Elizabeth. Everything is legally sound. They have no grounds to challenge your decisions. It's not legal challenges I'm worried about, I admitted. It's the personal cost. Melissa is my only child. Margaret's expression softened. I remember when she was born. James came to the office with cigars, breaking all his own rules about professionalism. She shook her head. People change, Elizabeth. Sometimes not in the ways we hope, but they can change again, I said quietly. I have to believe that. In the weeks leading up to the foundation launch, I threw myself into preparations. The event would not only announce the foundation's expanded mission, but would also unveil a major new initiative, the James Harrington First Generation Scholarship Program, which would provide full rides to state universities for promising students from low-income backgrounds. I visited my safe regularly, retrieving documents, reviewing investments, making decisions about which assets to liquidate to fund the foundation's growth. The newspapers that had once covered James's business success would soon cover his legacy in a new way, not as a wealthy investor, but as the force behind educational opportunities for thousands. I also prepared for the personal confrontation I knew was coming. Melissa and Parker would not give up easily. especially once they realized how little control they would have over the bulk of the fortune. They would try other tactics, other angles of attack, but I was ready. I had spent 15 years managing this wealth while maintaining my teaching career. I had spent 34 years being a mother, making difficult decisions out of love. I had the truth on my side, and increasingly, I had my own hard-won confidence. The night before the launch event, I stood in my bedroom, looking at the photographs on my dresser. James on our wedding day, Melissa as a toddler, as a teenager, at her college graduation, my parents, long gone now, the family I had loved, the life I had built. "I'm doing the right thing," I said aloud to the empty room. Finally, tomorrow would be a new beginning, not just for the foundation, but for me, Elizabeth Harrington, stepping out of the shadows and into the light of her own making. The night of the foundation launch arrived with a light snowfall that dusted Hartford in crystalline white, transforming the old library into something from a fairy tale. Inside, the space glowed with warm light, elegant, but not ostentatious. Photographs of scholarship recipients lined the walls, alongside quotes about the transformative power of education. A string quartet played softly in the corner. I wore a simple black dress, expensive but understated, and my mother's pearls. As I greeted guests, accepted congratulations, introduced board members to community partners, I felt a confidence I hadn't experienced in years. This was right. This was the culmination of James's vision and mine, the purpose that had guided our choices through decades of quiet accumulation. Mrs. Harrington, a former student, approached, now a principal at an urban high school. "This is amazing. The impact these scholarships will have on my students. I can't thank you enough." "Elizabeth," called the superintendent I'd worked with for years. "I had no idea. All those committee meetings where you fought for resources and you could have just written a check. That would have defeated the purpose." I smiled. Systems change through advocacy, not just funding. The crowd was a mix of educational professionals, community leaders, philanthropic partners, people who understood the mission, who valued substance over flash. Several journalists circulated, gathering material for the stories that would appear in tomorrow's papers. I kept watching the door, waiting. At precisely 7:30, they arrived. Melissa wore red, a designer gown that seemed excessive for the occasion, clearly chosen to stand out. Parker was in a tuxedo, as if attending a gala rather than a foundation launch. His parents followed behind them, looking uncomfortable, but curious. The foursome moved through the crowd like a separate entity, accepting drinks from passing waiters, surveying the room with the assessing eyes of buyers at an auction. I finished my conversation with the dean of the state university and made my way toward them, intercepted repeatedly by well-wishers along the way. By the time I reached them, Parker's father was already deep in conversation with one of the foundation's major donors, no doubt probing for connections or opportunities. "Melissa," I said, embracing my daughter briefly, "I'm glad you could make it." Her smile was tight. "Quite the event, Mother. Not at all what I expected." "The foundation has been a passion project for years," I replied. "I'm just making it official." Parker's mother joined us, her eyes darting around the room. "Elizabeth, this is enlightening. Richard and I had no idea about your involvement in education. Teaching was my career for 30 years, Constance. This is a natural extension of that work." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Of course, though with resources like yours, one could have impact in more influential sectors." Before I could respond, Margaret appeared at my elbow. "Elizabeth, the program is about to begin. You should take your place at the podium." I excused myself, feeling Melissa's eyes on my back as I walked away. The room quieted as I took my position at the front, the foundation's logo projected on the wall behind me. "Good evening," I began. "And thank you all for joining us for this important night. Some of you have known me for decades as a teacher, a colleague, a friend. Others are meeting me for the first time tonight, but all of us share a common belief that education is the most powerful force for change in our society. As I spoke about James's journey from coal country to success, about our shared vision for expanding educational opportunity, I could see the faces in the crowd, moved, engaged, supportive, all except for the small cluster at the back where Melissa, Parker, and his parents stood, their expressions ranging from discomfort to calculation. Today, I'm proud to announce that the Harrington Education Foundation is committing $50 million over the next decade to support first-generation college students throughout New England. A murmur ran through the crowd. This is just the beginning. With your partnership, we will build pathways of opportunity for thousands of young people who, like my late husband, have the talent and determination to succeed, but lack the financial resources. The applause was genuine, enthusiastic. I introduced several scholarship recipients who spoke movingly about the impact of educational opportunity on their lives. By the time the formal program concluded, the energy in the room was electric with possibility. As the crowd dispersed into networking groups, I found myself cornered near the refreshment table by Parker and his father. "Impressive presentation, Elizabeth," Richard said, his tone suggesting the opposite. "Though I wonder about the scale. $50 million is certainly generous, but with the right investment strategy, the impact could be much larger. The foundation's endowment is carefully managed," I replied. "The $50 million is just our first major initiative." Parker leaned in. "That's actually what we wanted to discuss. My firm has extensive experience with foundation management. We could help you optimize the structure, maximize tax advantages, perhaps explore some more prestigious partnerships." I sipped my water. "The foundation already has excellent advisors, but thank you for the offer." Richard's smile tightened. "Elizabeth, I hope you don't mind my frankness, but this seems like a rather limited use of your resources. Education is certainly worthy, but there are higher-profile philanthropic sectors that would offer better networking opportunities for the family. The foundation isn't about networking opportunities, Richard. It's about impact." "Everything is about networking at this level," he insisted. "Parker has connections with several major art institutions in New York. Now that would be a legacy, having the Harrington name on a new wing at the Metropolitan Museum." I nearly laughed at the transparency of it. They wanted to redirect the foundation toward their own social climbing, to use my money to buy their way into circles that had thus far resisted them. "The Harrington name already has a legacy," I said firmly. "It's the one James and I built together, and it's exactly what we wanted." Parker's expression hardened. "Melissa is understandably concerned about her exclusion from decisions about her family legacy. As James's only child, I interrupted. "Melissa has benefited from his success her entire life, and she will continue to benefit. But the bulk of our fortune was always intended for this purpose." Richard stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Look, Elizabeth, we understand you're attached to this project, but perhaps it's time to bring in the next generation. Melissa has expressed serious concerns about your judgment lately. The sudden public announcements, the large financial commitments. It raises questions about your state of mind." So they were playing that card again, suggesting I was mentally unfit to manage my own affairs. I felt a cold anger settle in my chest, but kept my voice steady. "My state of mind is excellent, Richard, as my medical records, financial advisors, and legal team will all attest if necessary." His eyes widened slightly at the implication that I'd already anticipated this line of attack. At that moment, Melissa appeared, her face flushed from wine and emotion. "There you are, Mom. We need to talk, privately." I nodded to Richard and Parker. "If you'll excuse us." We found a quiet corner near the library's old reference section, now elegantly repurposed for the event. Melissa's hands trembled slightly as she clutched her champagne flute. "Why are you doing this?" she demanded without preamble. "Was it to humiliate me? To show me how little you think of me? This has nothing to do with you, Melissa. The foundation has been planned for years. Everything has to do with me." Her voice rose, then dropped as she noticed nearby guests glancing our way. "I'm your daughter, your only child. This should have been my inheritance to manage as I see fit." I looked at her, really looked at her, the beautiful woman she'd become, so polished, so accomplished in many ways, yet so lost in others. Inheritance isn't just about money, Melissa. It's about values, legacy, purpose. Your father and I always intended the bulk of our fortune to serve a larger purpose. And you didn't think I deserved to be part of that decision? You are part of it. The trust in your name is substantial, but it comes with the responsibility to continue the work we've begun." She laughed bitterly. "More tests, more hoops to jump through to prove I'm worthy. Not to prove you're worthy," I said softly, "to help you discover what truly matters. Because right now, Melissa, I don't think you know." Her face flushed. You have no idea what matters to me. You never bothered to ask. You were too busy playing the humble teacher, too righteous to admit you enjoyed wealth like the rest of us. I never pretended not to enjoy comfort, Melissa. I simply chose not to be defined by it. There's a difference. She set down her glass with a sharp click. You know what Parker says? He says you're punishing me for not becoming a carbon copy of you, for choosing a different life. He says it's pathological, the way you've controlled the money all these years. And what do you say? She faltered just for a moment. I say you owe me more than this. More respect, more trust, more freedom. The trust provides you with more money annually than most families see in a decade, I pointed out. How is that not freedom? Because it's on your terms, she snapped. Because you're still pulling the strings. I took a deep breath. Melissa, listen to me carefully. This foundation is happening. The structure of the trusts is legally binding. You have choices to make now about how you'll respond, about what role you want to play in this legacy, about what kind of relationship we'll have going forward. But trying to challenge my competence or seize control won't work. It will only cost you more than you can imagine. Her eyes narrowed. Is that a threat? No, it's the truth. I've spent 34 years being your mother, trying to guide you toward becoming your best self. Tonight, I'm asking you one last time to look beyond the money, beyond the status games, and find something meaningful to commit yourself to. For a moment, just a fleeting moment, I thought I saw something shift in her eyes, a flash of uncertainty, perhaps even understanding, but it vanished quickly, replaced by the hard shell of entitlement she'd constructed over the years. This isn't over, she said quietly. No, I agreed, but the terms have changed. Think carefully about your next move, Melissa. There's still a place for you in all this, if you want it. As she walked away, back straight and head high, I felt both heartbreak and resolution. I had done what I could. The rest was up to her. 6 months later, I stood in my garden, early morning sunlight warming my face as I pinched dead blooms from my rose bushes. The newspaper lay open on the patio table, featuring a story about the Harrington Foundation's latest initiative, a teacher training program designed to support educators working in underserved communities. The program was already showing promising results, as were the scholarships, the literacy project, the after-school programs we'd funded across New England. My days were full now, with foundation work, with mentoring, with a new sense of purpose that energized me despite the occasional ache in my joints. The house remained unchanged. I'd had offers from developers eager to buy the property, but I had no intention of selling. This home held too many memories, too much history. Besides, I liked the symmetry of it, the modest exterior concealing unexpected depth, just like the life James and I had built together. Melissa hadn't spoken to me since the night of the foundation launch. She and Parker had consulted lawyers about challenging the trust arrangements, but Margaret's work had been flawless. There were no legal grounds for contest, no loopholes to exploit. Eventually, they'd given up the fight, at least in the courts. The personal battle, that remained unresolved. Until today, I heard the car before I saw it, a modest Honda Civic rather than the luxury vehicle I'd expected. It pulled into my driveway, engine cutting off with a soft purr. I set down my gardening shears and waited. Melissa emerged alone, wearing jeans and a simple blouse rather than her usual designer attire. She looked thinner, her face more angular, but there was something different about her eyes, a clarity I hadn't seen in years. "Hi, Mom," she said, walking toward me with hesitant steps. "Melissa, this is a surprise." She glanced at the newspaper on the table. "I saw the article about the teacher program. It's impressive. Thank you." I gestured to the chair across from mine. "Would you like some coffee?" She nodded, sitting down carefully, as if the familiar patio furniture might somehow have changed in her absence. I poured her a cup from the carafe I'd brought outside earlier, sliding it across the table along with cream and sugar. "Parker and I separated," she said abruptly, stirring her coffee with unnecessary focus. 3 months ago. I kept my expression neutral, though my heart raced with questions. "I'm sorry to hear that." She shrugged slightly. "Don't be. It was a long time coming. The foundation situation just accelerated things." Her eyes met mine briefly. "He only wanted me for the money he thought I'd inherit. Once he realized that wasn't happening the way he planned, things fell apart pretty quickly. That must have been difficult." "Actually," she said, surprising me with a small smile, "it was clarifying. Like waking up from a fog I didn't know I was in. She sipped her coffee. His parents were furious. Apparently they'd been counting on my inheritance to bail out some of their investment problems. I hadn't known that, but it didn't surprise me. And what have you been doing these past 3 months? Thinking. A lot. She set down her cup. And working, actually. I got a job at a startup. Educational technology. Much lower salary than my previous position, but I like it. We're developing apps for early literacy in underserved communities. I couldn't hide my surprise at this. That sounds meaningful. It is. She looked around the garden, at the house beyond. You know, when I was growing up, I thought we were, if not poor, then just getting by. I resented it sometimes. Wanted the things other kids had. A rueful smile crossed her face. Then I spent years trying to acquire all those things, only to discover they didn't make me happy. What does? I asked softly. She considered this. I'm still figuring that out, but the work helps. Seeing the impact on actual children, actual schools. She paused. Like you must have seen as a teacher all those years. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak past the sudden lump in my throat. I've been reading about the foundation, she continued, following the projects, the outcomes. It's exactly what Dad would have wanted, isn't it? Yes, I said simply. It is. We sat in silence for a moment, the only sounds the distant traffic and birds calling from the maple tree. I was angry for a long time, Melissa finally said. At you, at Dad for dying, at life for not being what I thought it should be. I wanted the money because I thought it would fix everything, make me important, secure, valued. She looked up, her eyes clear and direct. But watching you these past months, seeing what you've built with the foundation, I'm starting to understand what you and Dad were trying to teach me all along. And what was that? I asked, though I already knew the answer. That wealth is a tool, not an identity. That what you do matters more than what you have. That, she hesitated, that I was looking for validation in all the wrong places. I reached across the table then, offering my hand. After a moment's hesitation, she took it. Her fingers were cool against my gardening-warmed skin. I'm not asking for anything, she said quickly. I don't expect you to change the trusts or give me a role at the foundation. I needed to tell you that I'm beginning to understand, and that I'm sorry. The foundation will always need dedicated people, I said carefully. People who understand its mission and values. When you're ready, truly ready, there could be a place for you there. She nodded, not jumping at the opening but not rejecting it either. Progress. I've missed you, Mom, she said, her voice small. I've missed this house, the way the light hits the kitchen in the morning, the smell of your garden after it rains. It's still your home too, I told her, whenever you want it to be. Later, after Melissa had left with a promise to return for Sunday dinner, I walked through my house alone, touching photographs, remembering. The safe upstairs remained, still holding documentation of wealth that had finally found its true purpose. Not as a nest egg, not as a status symbol, but as a force for change in the world. James would have been proud, not just of the foundation, but of Melissa's first steps toward finding her own path. The journey wouldn't be easy or straight. There would be setbacks, old patterns reasserting themselves, new challenges to face. But for the first time in years, I had hope that my daughter was beginning to understand the true inheritance her father and I had always intended for her. Not money, not status, but purpose, values, the courage to live authentically rather than performatively. I picked up a photograph of the three of us, James, Melissa, and me, taken at the lake house the summer before he got sick. We were laughing, our faces alight with simple joy. I traced the outline of James's smile with my fingertip. We did our best, I whispered to his image. It took longer than we thought, but she's finding her way. Outside my window, the sunset painted the sky in shades of gold and rose, illuminating my modest house, my carefully tended garden, my life of purpose and meaning. In the distance, Hartford's skyline glimmered, and somewhere in that cityscape, the foundation offices continued their work, extending opportunity to those who needed it most. I had lived two lives for so long, the modest teacher and the secret millionaire. Now, finally, those lives had merged into one authentic whole. I was simply Elizabeth Harrington, a woman who had learned that true wealth had little to do with money and everything to do with how you chose to live your values in the world. It had taken courage to step into the light, to claim my power, to stand firm in my convictions, even when it meant potential estrangement from my only child. But that courage had ultimately created the possibility for healing, for growth, for new beginnings. The safe upstairs no longer represented a secret to be kept or a test to be passed. It was simply a tool, like the foundation itself, for doing good in the world. The real treasure had never been the money at all, but the clarity of purpose that had guided James and me from the beginning. That, after all, was the true inheritance, one that couldn't be counted or measured or locked away, but that grew richer with each life touched, each opportunity created, each moment of authentic connection, including perhaps the fragile new beginning with my daughter, who was finally learning that some things in life were far more valuable than money.